welcome to Your Intended Message. My guest today is Noel Dibona. Here's 3 facts that I think you should know about Noel. 1, he began his career as an operations supervisor in a Clorox manufacturing facility, and he was frustrated working on teams that had too much red tape and not enough action. And at that time, he made the promise to go on a mission to make a change in building better teams. And over the course of the next 35 years, he served on high-performance teams, and that includes in military special operations and in private business. And over the past 15 years, his experience has continued to grow, and he has saved companies millions of dollars by making teams more efficient. And those companies include, some of the companies included in there are Electrolux, DuPont, and GSK. Noel Dibona, welcome to Your Intended Message.
Thank you so much, George. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today with Your Intended Message. It's a great podcast, and I'm looking forward to our conversations. Thank you.
Delighted to be talking with you, Noel. And I'm curious, of all the teams you worked on, I would imagine working in special forces, one really learns how to appreciate all the nuances of a team working together for one purpose.
Absolutely, George. In a team such as that, high-performance team, we all knew what our jobs were. We could fill in for each other. We were cross-trained, and we were brutally honest with each other, but we would put our lives, obviously, on the line for one another. So it was what you would consider to be the utmost highest respect, trust, and open communication that you could possibly expect of any high-performance team. It was truly a pleasure and an honor for me to be part of that through my career.
And Noel, did you find that you could take lessons learned in that team environment and apply it into business?
Absolutely, George. One of the things that we were able to do when I came out of the military was really understand how people are orienting themselves towards getting their work done and how everybody works just a little bit differently. And when I came out of the military, I was very prone to looking forward to talking to people, to understand what they were doing, and to just put myself in the learn mode. I was very inquisitive, asked lots of questions. I wanted to know how everything worked. And I got that from being in the military because we're in contact with so many people, so many different folks from different walks of life that I'm extremely comfortable dealing with many different types of individuals. And so right from the very beginning, when I got out of the military, I was focused on really building relationships with the people I worked with.
You mentioned that in the special forces, you would be brutally honest with each other. And I imagine that brutal part needs to be toned down when we're in the workforce.
Well, absolutely. Nobody wants to know that they messed up. But in a really high performance team, you can get your teammates to the point where they're able to accept one another and to be brutally honest with each other in a good way, not in a way that is going to tear people down, but just being very open. It's really what I meant by brutally honest. But yes, you're right. And it really depends on the types of industries you're in. When I go out to a construction site, it's a lot different than going into the home office of the engineering company. And everybody has a little bit of a different personalities, different industries have different pulses. And we try to do things that are going to be appropriate for the types of individuals that we're working with at any point in time.
There's no question people are different cultures, different upbringings, and I'm guessing that they will respond differently to the brutal honesty. So how do you prepare a team to, 1, be willing to give honesty, and 2, accept it?
There's a few steps that need to be done. There's some basic foundation that needs to be put into place. The first part of that foundation is to equip people with a greater sense of their own self-awareness. And what I mean by that is to provide them some insights. So we provide assessments to individuals in order that they can take a deep dive into their own persona. They'll begin to understand things that they really already know. They're just under the surface of their consciousness, some more than others, just depending on how much experience they have. But at the end of the day, we have to reacquaint ourselves with who we really are and really be true to who we are and to be able to leverage our strengths. So we want to know more about how we make decisions, how we evaluate risk, how do we solve problems, how do we resolve conflict, how do we look at risk, all of those things. Once we understand those really, really well, it equips us in a way that gives us a more accurate perception of how others perceive us.
In taking a deep dive into understanding ourselves and perhaps putting into words features, characteristics that we never put into words, that's probably good for ourselves. Is that also meant to be shared with the team, saying, hey guys, here's how I think. Here's how I think through things. So please don't take it wrong when I do this.
Absolutely. The second part of this is for each individual on the team to have an honest conversation with one another about their strengths and their potential blind spots, the things that might make them a little bit not so easy to get along with when there's pressure and stress. We can talk with each other very openly, honestly, and in a cordial way when there's no heat on us. But as the team comes under stress, the stress of everyday business, depending on what's happening in that company, people begin to work in a way where they might overutilize their strengths. And when they overutilize their strengths, there's a flip side to the good things that we do. For example, we might be really proactive and we might be independent minded, which is a really good thing when you're trying to bring change about in the organization. However, if the other people are more collaborative and I'm under a lot of stress, then it's going to come across in a way that might not really be that good to build teamwork from. It might tear down teamwork a little bit. So we want every individual to have an open and honest conversation with one another in order to gain a better sense of appreciation of who we are. And we can do this with people that have worked with each other for years and years. And sometimes they know, obviously, a little bit more than if they had just started working with each other. But it's really, really interesting to note that in most cases, they learn things about people that they never knew.
When you work with teams, where do you start?
We start with the behavioral analysis. That is the number one thing that we do. And then once we do that, we want them to interact with each other in a setting that we set the stage for. We give them some homework assignments. We do a lot of peer-to-peer training. So when this team is working with these concepts, they're working with one another, not in a classroom environment, in their everyday work environment.
What are the surprises that people admit to once they start working with you? What are the surprises that they go, the aha moments, or, oh, really?
Usually it's around other teammates that they realize something about them, their backgrounds, what they like, what they don't like, and they're able to work with each other more effectively. Oftentimes, it can also be a situation where they actually gain more alignment with each other because they both see eye to eye on certain issues that they were dealing with. Perhaps they think the company culture is not as good as they would like it to be. They get aligned on that particular issue. So it really depends on the individuals and it depends on the unique characteristics of each and every team. But there are things that come out when people begin working with each other that will not come out in everyday work. In everyday work, we put on our persona that we want to be and not really truly who we are. And so when we go through the assessment, we can actually see individuals that attempt to make themselves work in a way that is much different than their intrinsic drives and needs require them to work. And when that happens, they take on a lot of stress and tiredness. And it kind of evolves into becoming frustrated. We can actually predict individuals that are at risk for leaving the company because of those reasons.
And what I'm hearing there, Noel, is when, gee, has this ever happened? When we try to be someone else, when we put on this mask, or you know, we step into the office and we suddenly become this other person. Okay, I got to be this, act this way so that they accept me.
Yes, absolutely. It happens quite a bit. And about 20% of the people, we got hundreds and hundreds of folks that have gone through this system, but about 15 to 20% of the individuals are really conducting themselves, interacting in the workplace in a way that is significantly different than their intrinsic drives and needs require them to be. And they're not happy. They're just not happy.
And Noel, give us an example of that? Where have you seen that happening, where the person is trying to be something that they're not, and if they could just be themselves, it would work better for everyone? What traits have you seen that come out in?
Yeah, I was just working with a client late last week where they were more collaborative in as opposed to being independent minded. So they're this type of individual was really comfortable getting people's opinions and working with those opinions and getting a decision made through consensus. In addition to that, the person was only moderately low in their extroversion drive. So although they wanted to collaborate with others, they weren't really good at starting conversations. So it took a lot of momentum for them to have these conversations with their working partners. And they were in an environment that was driven by being very, very scheduled and a lot of goal attainment. They needed to be schedule and cost driven. And their manager was very, very high in being driven towards attaining those goals. And as a result, that person and several other project managers in that organization were very independent minded and extroverted. And so when you looked at this person's data from their assessment, though they were very collaborative and moderately introspective, they were more leaning toward being more dominant and more independent. So they tried to adapt to the behavior that was around them in their environment. Unfortunately, it created a lot of, stress and fatigue. You can do it for a few days, but you can't do it for weeks and months and years. And this person was under a lot of fatigue. So we have to help that person deal with it and get back to who they really are and leverage those strengths in the proper way. And we do that through utilization of effective communication techniques, mindfulness. We do it through just educating them and getting all of their teammates to understand who they really are.
And Noel, is there a magic phrase or magic words that someone can say when they know that their personality type is different from the team and they want to contribute, but they don't feel that it's comfortable, that I just can't play with this team because they're all different than me?
Yeah, we have to really be careful of that because what happens during this stressful situation that they're under constantly, they begin to have some self-limiting beliefs. And so we don't want them to take on those self-limiting beliefs that limit their ability to do the things that they need to do. They don't have to be a certain personality trait to do their job. They can do their jobs just in the way that they're meant to be able to do their jobs. Unfortunately, what happens in organizations is that teams tend to cast those differences, those people that have those differences aside, and they don't take them seriously. So, in effect, we are getting people to really understand what that individual's real strengths are and redefine the way that they bring value to the team.
Noel, is there a danger of the team trying to copy the leader's style?
There can be, and that's what we don't want. We don't want leaders that are going to be so overbearing that they make everybody do their jobs in the way that they believe they need to be done. We want the leader to understand the true drives and needs of each individual so that the leader can then shape the position to meet the needs of the individual without still making them accountable. We don't want them to sacrifice accountability, but we do want leaders to understand the true strengths of each and every individual and use them in a way that makes the best sense for the team. Oftentimes, we have many leaders that we see that want to take people and put them into a certain job, and that's the way they need to get their job done. Think of it this way, George. Think about when you have a standard operating procedure that's written in a huge level of detail that leaders actually believe that they're going to follow those SOPs. Well, we know that a very detailed person is going to dissect that SOP, and one that's high in rules and formality and job structure, they're going to dissect that SOP and they're going to diagram it out and they're going to follow it to a T because they're highly precise. But then others that are going to be very driving in nature, where they can do lots of different tasks, multitask like crazy, they're going to look at that SOP and they're going to kind of get the gist of it, but they're not going to follow it to the same level of detail. So we have to understand, although we have these policies, procedures, processes in place, we have to understand that everybody's going to do their job a little bit differently. And why would we have somebody that has the nth degree of detail be in a sales job where they have to they have to bring things to fruition? They can't overanalyze. So we need to match up the skill sets to the job in the right way. That's a really big deal for a high performance team. We call it putting the right people on the right seat of the bus. Without that, our team is not going to be functioning at its peak efficiency or effectiveness.
Noel, you use the predictive index in looking at people. What does that predictive index predict?
Yeah, the predictive index predicts how people interact in the workplace. And it's a very, very accurate instrument. It's been in use since 1955. At least 30 million people have taken the assessment. It's used in 100 countries all over the world. 10,000 or so ongoing clients use this. I've used a lot of different types of surveys, George. I've used Caliper, I've used DISC, I've used Myers-Briggs. There's a wide range of different assessments, but what I really love about the predictive index is that now I can use a methodology to actually aggregate all those individual data sets of that team and characterize the entire team. So now that we've gone from an individual, we go to an entire team and we identify the nature of that team, what its strengths are, and what its potential blind spots are. So as a result, when we're wanting the team to attain a certain level of impact to the organization, we can understand if we're trying to get a team that has too many people of the wrong types of drives and needs. And a lot of times teams are actually ineffective from day one, and they don't even know it by virtue of how they staff the team. So we actually use these assessments and these methodologies to be able to staff teams that are new on a new and exciting project that has to come out of the gate on day one, making impact.
You mentioned in your military experience that you were cross-trained. Is cross-training, is that worthwhile for business teams?
Absolutely. What we work with leaders on, once we get through all of the persona and assessment issues, we then look at the management operating system. And do you know, George, 44% of managers or leaders at all levels do not fully understand all of the deliverables that their team are responsible for. And so what we do is we ask each leader to get with their team and identify all of their core work areas and every last deliverable that they have to get done. And you know what we find is that for every 10 hours worked, there's only about 4 hours, though 6 hours, let's say, of productive time. There's 4 hours of meetings, interruptions, and non-productive work. So absolutely, we want the leaders to understand exactly what work needs to be done. And then we begin looking at how we can achieve the results of that work with the fewest number of hours invested. So we're trying to make the group, the team, more efficient and effective through that process.
What's a good indicator or signs or symptoms that a leader should look for to know, to realize that their team needs to get better? There's something not working here.
Yeah, well, what we try to create is a higher level of awareness among all teammates, so that if you walk up to one of your team members and in the middle of the day and you say, hey, how is your day going? Well, my day is actually not going as well as I intended it to. Well, do you know how to get it back on track? Absolutely. I know exactly what we need to do. That's what we want, is situational awareness in terms of what we're doing and how we might need to do something different in order to bring the results that we're after. So the leader really needs to work on a week by week plan for how that work needs to get accomplished. And it sounds a bit simplistic, but even in research and development organizations, when we have the ability to better forecast, plan, and assign work, we're going to get more done, because everybody is going to be aware of how much time they have to get something done. We're not making it into a sweatshop. We're making it more fun because we're passing that ball back and forth to our teammates. We're making progress and we're scoring goals. And when you begin to experience being on a winning team, it's infectious. That team gets to the next level. We want teams to be able to achieve breakthroughs on a regular basis. We don't want teams to be consumed with fighting fires. We don't even want teams to be consumed with just treading water, holding their head above water, solving problems as soon as they appear. That's not even good enough. We might want them to at least be incrementally improving, but really where we want them to be is regular step change, regular breakthroughs in the work that they're doing. We all got to get better, and it has to constantly improve.
Noel, if people want to learn more about you and the services you offer, where's the best place to find you?
You can find us on the web at www.consultdibona.com. And you can take the assessment off of the website. You can look at other things that we've done and the clients that we work with. And we'd love to have a conversation with anybody if they would like to get more information as to how we provide leaders build winning teams.
And you can find that link in the description below. Be sure to check it out to learn more about the team building and that is online assessment. Noel, before we wrap up, if you could sit down with a team leader who is seems to be struggling with their team, but they just don't know, they just can't put their finger on where the problem is, or maybe they think it's a person who's the problem. If you could give them 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice, what might that be?
For the viewers of your intended message, this is a gold nugget that we can provide you today. And that is that with a quick survey and assessment on each individual, what their true personas are. And in addition to that, an evaluation of the level of engagement and the leadership's approachability. We have a 30-question survey that we can provide any interested team leader to identify whether or not the issue is with them or a teammate or the company culture or the interaction between individuals on their team, and quickly point that leader in the right direction. We call it our 30-minute team improvement plan. And we can provide that. We only ask the leader to take the assessment and a 30-question questionnaire or survey. And with those 2 pieces of information, we can have a 30-minute conversation and develop a high-level action plan. And they work marvelous. It is a very, very worthwhile endeavor. We've done so many of these, we can look at a team and we can assess it very, very quickly. And people are amazed, but they feel like they have the weight of the world off their shoulders, because they know when they get up in the morning, they're going into work, they know they've got some issues, but they don't know how to address them. We break it down into details and make it very simple, very easy to understand.
Sounds like practical advice there. Thank you, Noel. My guest today is Noel Dibona, reminding you that building a team starts first with a deep dive on the self-awareness of yourself and then on the interactions of the team.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate it. Your intended message is a great service to those that are out there looking for ways to build their business and to not suffer from a lot of the issues that others have suffered from. So I appreciate what you're trying to do with your intended message. And thank you very much for having me on today.
My pleasure.